Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today we're going to take a look at the beautiful Language of Flowers Oracle by Cheralyn Darcey and released by Rockpool Publishing. In this deck, we'll discover the energies of blossoming plants from 44 of Earth's sacred areas, and we'll learn how to enrich our lives with their messages. This deck is beautifully illustrated in block prints by the author to capture the raw beauty and magical energy of each flower. So this is another lovely little Rockpool deck. I have several of Cheralyn Darcey's Oracle decks, and I really do love her art style, and I love the way she approaches her decks. So when I got the opportunity to check this one out, I was super excited to dive right in. I think it has a beautiful energy for the spring and summertime, which makes it just the perfect deck for right now. It does come in this gorgeous two-piece box. I mean, Rockpool boxes are just fantastic. We have a little bit of information on the back with a couple of the cards and a little bit about the artist. It says Cheralyn Darcey is a botanical explorer, florist, organic gardener, environmental artist, and author and illustrator of nearly 20 botanical titles. So I do feel that Cheralyn Darcey's decks are really well curated and that she definitely knows her flower and botanical information. We have a gorgeous text on the sides of the box, of course, the wonderful thumb holes, and as per Rockpool, we have a lovely little illustration and colored insides. The deck sits inside the box, and the book and deck are all contained in one, which is really fantastic because then it all stays together. So it does come with a gorgeous guidebook, which we will take a look at here in a minute, but you know me, I like to jump right into these cards. The backs are absolutely stunning. It reminds me a little bit of like a Hawaiian print, like a Hawaiian shirt, which for me personally reminds me of my dad because that's like all he wears. So again, we have that gorgeous block print illustrations that is very indicative of Cheralyn's work. And I just love the colors in this deck. It's just such a beautiful color palette. I'm really excited to share it with you. So let's go ahead and jump into these beautiful cards. So in this gorgeous deck, we have not only the plant association and the cards, we have a keyword, but we also have a sacred place that these cards all relate to. So I am going to call out the sacred places as well as the flower name and the keyword, and I do apologize for any mispronunciations because I am not real great with botanical names or places, but I will definitely try my best. So starting off here, we have the Venus flytrap with action from South Carolina. We have the Gardenia with awareness from Vietnam. We have the Camilla with balance from Mount Tishan in China. We have the Oleander with caution from Morsura, Morocco. Lavender for cleansing from the Rapaganda Pyramid in France. The Jade Vine with communication from the Tala Volcano in the Philippines. The Scottish Primrose with compassion from Praying Hands, Glenlyon, Scotland. The Poet's Narcissus with confidence from Mount Olympus, Greece. We have the lovely Forget-Me-Nots with connection from Black Forest, Germany. We have the Raflisa with consciousness from Mount Sabaka in Indonesia. The Honey Gravilla with creation from Uluru in Australia. We have the Edelweiss with dedication from the Edelstein Abbey, Switzerland. The Red Tulip with desire from Aphrodisia, Turkey. The Sacred Lotus with detachment from Pushkar Lake in India. Next, we have the Red Rose with devotion from Flora's Temple in Italy. We have the King Proti with education from Table Mountain in South Africa. Here we have the Delphinium with enthusiasm from Carelia. Next, we have the Cattleya Orchid with fertility from Brazil. Frangipani with freedom from the Ceremonial Ball Courts in Puerto Rico. Next, we have Sweet Pea with gratitude from the Temple of Hera in Sicily. The Madonna Lily with healing from Croatia. The Chinese peony with honor from the Confucius Temple in China. Here we have the snowdrop with hope from the Dolomites in Italy. Next we have the Siberian iris with inspiration from Russia. The cornflower with knowledge from Germany. The white chrysanthemum for longevity from the Huxin Pavilion in China. The red carnation for love from Spain. The field poppy for memory from Flanders Field in Belgium. Next we have the cherry blossom for peace from the Hirosaki Castle in Japan. Next we have the Himalayan blue poppy with potential from Tibet. Here we have the Queen of the Night with power from Haiti. Next we have the daisy with protection from Glastonbury, England. Here we have the Antarctic pearlwort with purity from the Three Brothers Hill in Antarctica. Next we have the poinsettia with purpose from Mexico. The sacred blue lily with rebirth from the Nile, Egypt. The white hibiscus with respect from Hawaii. The wild sunflower with strength from Shiprock, USA. Next we have jasmine with success from the Golden Rock in Burma. Potonka with transformation from New Zealand. The wild rose with trust from the Valley of the 10 Peaks in Canada. Here we have the scarlet paintbrush with understanding from Yosemite Valley in USA. Next we have the pyramidal orchid with unity from Stonehenge in England. The Mexican marigold with vitality from Mexico. And finally, we have the magnolia with wisdom from the Shibuya Mountain in China. So that is a look at all of the cards in this gorgeous deck. I love the color palette. It feels very spring and summer to me. So now let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the guidebook. It is a beautiful full color guidebook, which is always fantastic. Rockpool guidebooks are really wonderful. We have this great table of contents here where we have each of the cards listed by number, and they are also in alphabetical order. You can see that that number is also represented on each of the cards as well, which makes it really easy to jump into this guidebook and find the page that you're looking for. I love when they have the little pops of color in their guidebooks. It just makes for really nice reading. So we have a little bit of an introduction here where it says, "Welcome to the garden, to the wilds, fields, and forests, where I invite you to join me as we listen to the voice of plants through the language of flowers. This is the way much of the botanical world connects with the other inhabitants of this planet to attract and to warn and to ensure their own survival. By taking the time to understand, you can gain great wisdom and personal support as you strengthen the ethnobotanical bond." So lovely little introduction. I really like her approach to this deck. She has a little bit on how to use the cards, pulling them for a flower a day. I love that she says, "I cannot stress the benefits of keeping a journal for your daily reflection, healing, and personal growth." Yes, I am right there, totally on board with that. I am huge into journaling. We also have a little bit about using the cards for oracle readings, for meditation, for healing modalities, education, which is always wonderful. I love when I can use a deck to further expand my knowledge as well. We also have a couple of spreads, which is really lovely. We have a flora seasonal advice. We also have a bouquet for answers, the garden gate, the garden of life. I mean, look at all these fantastic spreads. So I'm really excited to actually try all of those. Knowing me, I'll probably mix in some tarot with it as well, but I do really appreciate when they take the time to create spreads that really relate to the deck and tune into its energy. We have a small little thumbnail in full color of the card. We have the keyword, the flower name, the flower species name. I'm terrible at that. The scientific name, I think, is what it's called. We have the meaning for each of the cards, the challenges, which I think is really interesting, the botanical profile, which tells you more about the plant itself, gardening tips, along with the skill level, which I think is really interesting. I am a terrible gardener, but I would love to be better at it. So I really find those tips to be really interesting. And then, of course, we have a little bit about the place where each of these plants come from. And that's the layout that we have through the rest of the book with all the cards. We have about 2 to 3 pages, about 2.5 pages for each of these cards. In the back, we have a glossary, which is lovely, and of course a bibliography if you'd like to learn more a little bit about the author, and then a beautiful picture of our deck creator, who's just absolutely lovely. So beautiful, beautiful guidebook. I really love Rockpool guidebooks. They're very well done. They're very easy to use, and they make working with the guidebook a joy, which is fantastic because a lot of times when I have a deck like this one where I'm not as familiar with the theme, say the plants, because I'm really not up on my plant, the language of plants, or my flower energies, I think it's really important to have a good guidebook that you can tap into, and I always appreciate Rockpool guidebooks for that. So let's go ahead and read from the guidebook for our first card, which is Action with the Venus flytrap, just so you can get an idea of what kind of information is in here. So for meanings, we have the plant works by luring and retaining good energy that comes your way and will assist you to use these powers to boost your planned actions. It's also a protective plant as it scares off negative energy. If you want to attract love, and this may seem a little strange, but a Venus flytrap really is a pretty good ally. The challenge is, don't take on more than you can handle at the moment and be careful of possible deceptions. Your word may be asked for and you should be careful about what you promise now, as it may prove to be difficult to fulfill. Be sure before jumping in. I do like that we have a challenge for each card as well. Sometimes when an oracle card comes up in a challenging position in a spread, it's sometimes hard to kind of determine how to take that card in a challenge sense, and I love that this guidebook actually includes that in here. So here we have a little bit about the botanical profile of the flower. It says Venus flytraps originated from the east coast of Northern America and are a popular indoor plant around the world. Carnivorous, they capture their prey by simply being ready for the moment an insect walks across their hair triggers. They then clamp shut and slowly dissolve their meal. So then we have a couple gardening tips, and our skill level is advanced, which would not be me. It says, although this plant can be difficult to grow at home, you can find success by ensuring they receive full sun, but not high heat, a humid environment via misting, and that you keep human fingers away as well, as touching your plant can cause it to die. Only use rainwater to water, and throughout winter, let the soil dry out occasionally. They do not need feeding. Really interesting to find out more about how to take care of these plants as well. So the place for this particular card is Angel Oak Park, St. John's Island, South Carolina in the United States. It says, within this beautiful park stands Angel Oak, a southern live oak tree, which is estimated to be 400 to 500 years old. It stands 20 meters tall and measures 8.5 meters in circumference. So I think there's quite a bit of information in this little book at each card. We get a sort of oracle message, a challenge, a botanical profile about the actual plant, even includes some gardening tips and more information about the sacred place that is represented in the card as well. So I think it's a lovely little guidebook, and I think it's going to be really handy for working with this particular deck. So now that we've taken a look at all the cards and flipped through the guidebook, let's go ahead and give these a shuffle. They are pretty much oracle size, your traditional oracle size, and of course, gorgeous Rockpool cardstock, which shuffles beautifully. It is on the glossy side, so it can catch the light, but I find that these decks, the Rockpool decks, hold up really well, and they shuffle beautifully. So just go ahead and give them a nice shuffle. And see how they overhand. Of course, they overhand beautifully. Can probably even do them this way, even though I have small hands. So let's just go ahead and throw a couple cards down. That one apparently wanted to come with us. So we have Potential with the Himalayan Blue Poppy, Trust with the Wild Rose, and Strength with the Wild Sunflower. Definitely beautiful for 3-card readings. I kind of want to get some tarot out and just see what I can pair with it. So let's go ahead and play with that as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of deck pairings now, because I think that's always fun to do with the oracles. So I have paired the Language of Flowers with the Gentle Tarot, because I feel like these two decks have a really similar energy. I feel like they are going to go beautiful together, not only in terms of their color palettes, which I think are quite compatible, but I feel like each deck was very mindfully curated, very mindfully created to be really in touch with the sacred within the earth. And I think that that really goes together well with these two decks. So look at this. We have the Wild Sunflower with Strength in between the Four of Cups and the Root of Thunder. How beautiful are these together? This is always so much fun when I get to spend some time kind of looking through my decks and seeing what pairs together really well. Again, I feel like the energy of focusing in on the sacredness of Earth itself in both of these decks means that they just go really well together energetically. But I think in their art style and their color palette, they also are quite compatible. Just take a look at a couple more cards. We have Desire with the red tulip between the Nine of Thunder and the Hermit. Beautiful. You can also pick up on, some of the flowing bits of energy, where the colors, where the lines meet. I think that's always interesting as well. Look at this. The Daisy with protection between the Root of Stones and the Seed of Stones. Beautiful. Maybe do one more. Consciousness between the Seven of Wands and the Empress. So I also kind of rated my summer deck basket because I feel like this deck definitely has that kind of spring-summer energy. And I was curious to see how it paired with some of the decks that I tend to use during this particular seasons. So here we have the Tarot of the She, which I have trimmed down. And this to me kind of pulls in not only the sort of sacredness of the earth, but it also pulls in that kind of duality between the real world and the fae world. And I think that that's kind of a really interesting play, really interesting combination. And I do believe the colors really are very compatible. The art style is quite compatible. There's a lot of movement going on in these cards. There's definitely a lot of movement and energy within the Tarot of the She. But I feel like the Language of Flowers kind of brings a little bit of groundedness to the Tarot of the She, which is quite lovely because the Tarot of the She can be a very powerful deck in a good way, but it can be a very powerful deck with a lot of energy going on. And I feel like the Language of Flowers really kind of brings that rooted energy to it, but it also adds that sacredness as well. Look at this with the colors. We have that brown greens kind of flowing across all of these cards. Just beautiful. So another deck that I thought might pair really well with this is this Chez Monet Tarot. This is an indie deck, and it's one that I often use for kind of soul work. So again, I feel like we're pulling in the sacred along with that earthy energy, which I think works really well, blending those two styles together. I thought the colors on these two decks might be really compatible together. Look at this. We have the Cornflower with Knowledge between the Queen of Swords and the Empress. Quite beautiful. I really am also excited to see how the messages play out with some of the tarot decks that I would like to pair this oracle deck with. You can certainly use an oracle deck all on its own, but I do often like to pair it with tarot because I feel like they really balance each other out well and it really helps expand on the messages. Interesting, we have the Sacred Lotus with Detachment between the Angel and the Queen of Discs. Beautiful. Oh, look at all the reds popping out. That is the other thing that I really love about a deck like this is with these bright, bold colors, it really does help you to pull some of that color energy out of the surrounding cards as well. And I just think it's beautiful. So we have the Poinsettia with Purpose between the Three of Discs and the Ace of Discs. So again, another deck that I thought might pair really well with the Language of Flowers is actually the Morgan Greer Tarot. And I think it's really those bold colors with those nice, thick, bold lines that really create some cohesion between the art styles of these two decks, even though they are very different. And I love here in this one, we are picking up that flow of yellow. You would think I had planned that, but I just split the deck and set them down. So I thought this one might pair really well together, which I am pretty excited about because the Morgan Greer is one of my favorite decks. And I really love that idea of pulling in the flower energy along with the sacred space. because to me, the Morgan Greer is definitely a deck of more of the mundane. It's kind of I like to call it my deck of old friends, and it does feel very rooted into just everyday life. And I love pulling in that sort of sacredness through the sacred places and the flower energy that we get through the language of flowers oracle. I think that they are going to work beautifully together. I think the art styles are quite compatible, but I really love that tie in between the kind of magical and the mundane that I feel like we get through this particular pairing. I do think the bold line work goes together really well here, and I definitely can pick up some color flow between the cards, which I always do love to look for. Just kind of creates this lovely flow of energy across my readings. Because I do tend to do mostly 3-card readings, that tends to work really well. So again, another gorgeous deck from Rockpool. I really love the artwork. I do like the keywords that are on all the cards, and I'm excited to learn more about each of the flowers as well, especially tying into that sort of language aspect of it and the sacred places, because each of these cards does represent a sacred place here in the world, and I think it will be really interesting to go through and learn more about each of those. Might be a great jumping off point for not only learning more about each of the flowers that are represented in these cards, but all of the sacred places, just kind of helping us get in touch with our own world. I think, and that's wonderful when we see that represented through a deck. So I have pulled out the Flowers of the Night Oracle, which is also, again, another Rockpool deck by the same creator, because what I thought would be really interesting to do would be to use these two decks together to represent sort of the unconscious and the conscious. So kind of what's going on underneath and what is in awareness currently. So if we take these two cards, for example, what we're already awareness is this purity, and what we need to pull out of that is the power that we see represented here in the Queen of the Night with the power card. I think that's really beautiful. So here we have what's kind of underneath, what's in the subconscious realm. That underlying energy is creation, and what are we bringing it? How are we bringing it into awareness? We have transformation. So I thought this would be really interesting just to kind of pair these two decks together to see what might be going on the subconscious level as well as the conscious level, or what needs to be brought into consciousness. Look at these two paired together. I think they're really beautiful. We have acceptance. That's what we need to be working on. And how can we manifest that acceptance? By having a little bit more confidence in ourselves. Here we have awaken and dedication. Beautiful. I just want to real quick, I know I'm just completely playing here, but another kind of thought I had would be to take a tarot deck and kind of put it between them. And let's just split the deck right there. Perfect, the unseen. So in this instance, we can be using these as kind of a 3-card reading of using the tarot as kind of like, this is our main message, this is our focal point, and maybe this is what is in the unconscious realm, or what is currently unknown, and then what is coming into awareness for us. I thought that might be really fun too, to take a look at it from that aspect. So here we have our focus point with the Fool. That's our main message, that kind of, stepping into the unknown, and what's going on underneath that is kind of understanding of this, coming into understanding of who we are as a soul being. And then we have a rebirth. So what is coming out of all of this? We have the rebirth energy coming through the sacred blue lily. Beautiful. Here we have the Sun sitting in between protection and understanding. Again, really loving the play of the energy between these cards and the colors. Just gorgeous. I think these all work really well together. Definitely might be some pairings that I need to spend some time with, because I do think that they are quite beautiful. Oh, here's a good one. So we have the Lovers. That's our main focus message, and what's going on underneath that is this sensitivity, and the Night Gladiolus, and what's coming out of that is the inspiration with the Siberian Iris. Just beautiful. I really love the colors in this deck. I really love the line work. I think it's really beautiful. The keywords are fantastic. And I do quite like the flower energy in this deck, mostly because I know what most of these are, and that's really unusual. I feel like these are in some ways very common flowers amidst these sacred places, which I think is just really beautiful. We have, flowers that I know what they are and I've heard of them before, and they're in these really sacred places. So it does feel a little bit like a melding between the magical and the mundane in this one deck in the form of kind of flower and earth energy. I think it's got a great energy, and I think it's going to pair really beautifully with a lot of different decks, which is always fantastic for me with Oracle. I do occasionally use Oracle on its own and just pull a card for a single message, but most often I do actually use Oracle decks as a complement to my tarot readings. And so I love when I have Oracle decks that pair well with a lot of things and have really fantastic keywords that give me a really great focal point. So that's really important. I think this deck is very well done. So I do want to thank Rockpool Publishing for sending me the Language of Flowers Oracle to share with you today. I would love to know your thoughts on this deck, so please feel free to share with me in the comments below. Thank you for joining me today. You'll find links for everything featured here in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.